Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session, our second session looking at Soliman and Perseda by Thomas Kyd, or attributed to Thomas Kyd. It seems a pretty good shout to me. Haven't seen any massive flags coming up saying no, but who knows? History is a strange thing. We're looking at Act 2 and 3 today. We spent a reasonably chunky session looking at Act 1 as the plot was set up, and we started to get a sense of how everyone's going to be batted back and forth by the combined team of fortune, love and death, the worst form of chartered accountants that you will ever find in life. It's a play that may provoke a series of problematic issues as we go about look at representation of other peoples and cultures. So that's flagged up for later in the session. I don't know because we don't look in depth into what we're reading ahead, but we had a few moments last time where we had lots of questions to ask and answer, and of course this room is just a random group of readers and nobody is matched to parts in any meaningful fashion. Today reading Julio and Soliman is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I am looking for my script.
It's always good to look for that before speaking, because I'm all entirely scripted. I have no words of my own. I am from the land of fiction. Reading Guelpio and Philippo today is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Anyway, Ferdinando, Death and Brusor today is...
Hello, I'm Emma Kemp. I'm an actor and I'm in London.
Reading Lucina today is...
Muted. Hello, I'm Lynn, and I'm coming to you from northwestern United States.
Reading Piston and Cyprus today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good, and I'm a historian in Hull.
Reading Erastus today is...
Aliki, Chapple, actor and translator in Lancaster.
Reading Basilisco and Fortune is...
Me, Rachael, actor in New Jersey. Morning.
And reading Perseda and Love today is...
Briony, Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and passing out any additional parts that I have accidentally not given to anyone, which we'll find out as we go. We sometimes have those days. I'm hoping it won't be one of them. As we go into Act 2, the script we're working from does not have scene division, so we're going to be making up scenes as we go along. And so what we'll call Act 2, Scene 1, enter Ferdinando and Lucina.
As fits the time, so now well fits the place, to cool affection with our words and looks, if in our thoughts be semblant sympathy.
My words, my looks, my thoughts are all on thee. Ferdinando is Lucina's only joy.
What pledge thereof?
An oath, a hand, a kiss.
Oh, holy oath, fair hand, and sugared kiss. Oh, never may Ferdinando lack such bliss. But say, my dear, when shall the gates of heaven stand all wide open for celestial gods, with gladsome looks to gaze at Hymen's robes? When shall the graces or Lucina's hand with rosy chaplets deck my golden tresses, and Cupid bring me to thy nuptial bed, where thou in joy and pleasure must attend a blissful war with me, thy chiefest friend.
Full fraught with love and burning with desire, I long have longed for sight of Hymen's lights.
Then, that same day, whose warm and pleasant sight brings in the spring with many gladsome flowers, be our first day of joy and perfect peace. Till when, receive this precious carcanet, in sign that as the links are interlaced, so both our hearts are still combined in one, which never can be parted but by death.
I'm just going to pause us very briefly here, just to really put this into context, and also because there's some really suggestive language being used here. I mean, he's a smooth one, isn't he? They both seem quite horny. From the way the language is couched here, it works very, very well. But let's just note that Ferdinando is handing over a bit of jewellery that he just literally found lying around. So he's a classy dude. Very briefly, any thoughts from the room on that beyond Helen?
Yes, the new people might like to know that a castanet is a chain.
So yeah, it's classy dude, Ferdinando. I'm just wondering, those are lines to use in certain contexts. Okay. Okay, we'll let the scene continue. I apologise for pausing. So Lucina and Ferdinando, they have exchanged a gift. Enter Basilisco and Perseda.
And if I live, this shall not be forgot. But see, Ferdinando, where Perseda comes, whom women love for virtue, men for beauty. All the world loves, none hates but envy.
All hail, brave cavalier. Good morrow, madame. The fairest shine that shall this day be seen, except Perseda's beauteous excellence. Shame to love's queen and empress of my thoughts.
Marry, thrice happy is Perseda's chance to have so brave a champion to her squire.
Her squire, her knight, and whoso else denies shall feel the rigor of my sword and lance.
Oh, sir, not I.
Here is none but friends, yet let me challenge you, for gracing me with a malignant style, that I was fairest, and yet Perseda fairer. We ladies stand upon our beauties much.
Herein, Lucina, let me buckler him.
Not Mars himself had e'er so fair a buckler.
Love makes him blind, and blind can judge no colour.
Why then, the men's is made, and we still friends.
Still friends? Still foes? She wears my carthanet. Ah, false Erastus, how am I betrayed?
What ails you, madam, that your colour changes?
A sudden qualm. I therefore take my leave.
We'll bring you home.
No, I shall soon get home.
Why, then, farewell. Ferdinando, let's away.
Exeunt Ferdinando and Lucina.
Say, world's brightest star, whence springs this sudden change? Is it unkindness at the little praise I gave Lucina with my glossing style?
No, no. Her beauty her beauty far surpasseth mine, and from my neck, her neck hath won the praise.
What is it then? If love of this my person, by favour and by justice of the heavens, at last have pierced through thy translucent breast, and thou misdoubtest perhaps that I'll prove coy. Oh, be assured, 'tis far from noble thoughts to tyrannize over a yielding foe. Therefore be blithe, sweet love, abandon fear. I will forget thy former cruelty.
Oh, false Erastus, full of treachery.
I always told you that such coward knights were faithless swains and worthy no respect. But tell me, sweet love, what is his offence? That I with words and stripes may chastise him and bring him bond for thee to tread upon.
Now must I find the means to rid him hence. Go thou forthwith, arm thee from top to toe, and come an hour hence unto my lodging. Then will I tell thee this offence at large, and thou in my behalf shalt work revenge.
Aye, thus should men of valour be employed. This is good argument of thy true love. I go, make reckoning that Erastus dies, unless, forewarned, the weakling coward flies.
Exit Basilisco.
Thou foolish coward, flies? Erastus lives, the fairest shaped but foulest minded man that e'er sun saw within our hemisphere. My tongue to tell my woes is all too weak. I must unclasp me, or my heart will break. But inward cares are most pent in with grief. Unclasping therefore yields me no relief. Ah, that my moist and cloud-compacted brain could spend my cares in showers of weeping rain! But scalding sighs, like blasts of boisterous winds, hinder my tears from falling on the ground, and I must die by closure of my wound. Ah, false Erastus! How had I misdone, that thou shouldst quit my love with such a scorn?
Enter Erastus.
Here comes the Sinon of my heart. I'll frame myself to his dissembling art.
Sorry. Again, I'm having issues. I need to find the line. I'm scrolling. I'm on page 30. Where are we?
22.
22. Nearly there.
Well, I think we can take this as a good moment to briefly pause, because a lot of stuff's just happened. I mean, the plot has done a series of cartwheels. So no sooner has the chain passed hands, but Perseda comes in and goes, "Oh, what the hell's that doing there?" And then sort of suborns Basilisco, this sort of vainglorious knight, to go and kill Erastus, and which is clearly going to happen. So yeah, all sorts of things. Helen.
I think it's lovely that Basilisco has to insist again that he is in fact a knight, because people keep on missing his knighthood out.
Yes, yeah, he's no one's going to get it, are they? It's like trying to insist you have a nickname. You know, yeah, everyone calls me this. Yeah, that always works. Any other thoughts? It's Lynn.
Oh, I was just enjoying that sort of extended metaphor that Perseda had when she's talking about her grief and making the metaphor of the weather and her scalding sighs. I thought some of the language there was really lovely.
It's a really my moist and cloud compacted brain.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure on.
Yeah.
I quite liked that because it's.
What is it about the word moist?
It was really
What
nice
does
to
it
read.
mean?
I think she means it's that, how do you say kufovrasi in English? That sort of heaviness in the air when a storm is about to break.
Yeah.
So her head has this tension and she wishes it could all just...
Yeah.
But there's nice alliteration.
Yeah.
It was nice to read. And the cloud thing, I guess, as well, because you cry, so that's like the rain of the cloud.
Yeah.
It sort of makes sense to me.
If only I could cry and I would feel a bit better.
Yeah.
But my scalding sighs, I just sort of like that image. My sort of blasts from a furnace because, you know, my heart is so aflame.
Right.
Yeah, no, I take it back. I am a fan now. Okay. Okay. Erastus, are you with us?
I am with you.
Okay. Okay, you're a bit worried about how you're going to break the news to her. I think that may be your motivation. We'll find out with some text in a moment. Erastus, attempt to approach Perseda.
Desire persuades me on, fear pulls me back. Hush, I will to her. Innocence is bold. How fares Perseda, my sweet second self?
Well, now, Erastus, my heart's only joy, is come to join both hearts in union.
And till I came, whereas my love did dwell, my pleasure was but pain, my solace woe.
What love means, my Erastus, pray thee tell.
Matchless Perseda, she that gave me strength to win late conquests from many victors' hands. Thy name was conqueror, not my chivalry. Thy looks did arm me, not my coat of steel. Beauty did defend me, not my force. Thy favours bore me, not my light-footed steed. For to thee I owe both love and life. Wherefore makes Perseda such a doubt, as if Erastus could forget himself, which if I do, all vengeance light on me.
Ay me, how graceless are these wicked men! I can no longer hold my patience. Ah, how thine eyes can forge alluring looks and feign deep oaths to wound poor silly maids! Are there no honest drops in all thy cheeks, to check thy fraudful countenance with a blush? Call'st thou me love, and lov'st another better? If heavens were just, thy teeth would tear thy tongue for this thy perjured false disloyalty. If heavens were just, men should have open breasts, that we therein might read their guileful thoughts. If heavens were just, that power that forceth love would never couple wolves and lambs together. Yes, heavens are just, but thou art so corrupt that in thee all their influence doth change, as in the spider good things turn to poison. Ah, false Erastus, how had I misdone, that thou shouldst pawn my true affection's pledge to her whose worth will never equal mine? What, is Lucina's wealth exceeding mine? Yet mine sufficient to encounter thine. Is she more fair than I? That's not my fault, nor her desert. What's beauty but a blast, soon cropped with age or infirmities? Is she more wise? Her years are more than mine. Whate'er she be, my love was more than hers. And for her chastity, let others judge. But what talk I of her? The fault is thine. If I were so disgracious in thine eye, that she must needs enjoy my interest, why didst thou deck her with my ornament? Could nothing serve her but the carcanet, which, as my life, I gave to thee in charge? Couldst thou abuse my true simplicity, whose greatest fault was over-loving thee? I'll keep no tokens of thy perjury. Here, give her this. Perseda is free, and all my former love is turned to hate.
Stay, my sweet Perseda, hear me speak.
What are thy words but sirens' guileful songs that please the ear but seek to spoil the heart?
View my tears, that plead for innocence.
What are thy tears but Circe's magic seas, where none scape wrecked but blindfold mariners?
If words and tears displease, then view my looks, that plead for mercy.
What are thy looks but like the cockatrice that seems to wound poor silly passengers?
If words nor tears nor looks may win remorse, what then remains? For my perplexed heart hath no interpreters but words or tears or looks.
Then they are all as false as thou thyself.
And exit Perseda.
Hard doom of death. For my case be known, my judge unjust, and yet I cannot blame her, since love and jealousy misled her thus. Myself in fault, and yet not worthy blame, because that fortune made the fault. Love, the ground of her unkindness grows, because I lost the precious carcanet she gave me. Lucina hath it, as her words import. How she got it, heaven knows, not I. Yet this is some relievement to my sorrow, that if I can but get the chain again, I boldly then shall let Perseda know that she hath wronged Erastus and her friend. Ah, love, and if thou beest of heavenly power, inspire me with some present stratagem. It must be so. Lucina's a frank gamester, and like it is in play, she'll have hazarded it. Or if report but blazon her aright, she's a frank gamester, and inclined to play. Piston!
Enter Piston.
Here, sir. What would you with me?
Desire Guelpio and Signor Julio come speak with me, and bid them bring some store of crowns with them. And, sir, provide me 4 vizards, 4 gowns, a box, and a drum, for I intend to go in mummery.
I will, sir.
Exit Piston.
Virtuous lamps of ever turning heaven, incline her mind to play, and mine to win. How do I covet but what is mine alone? Then shall I let Perseda understand how jealousy hath armed her tongue with malice. Oh, were she not Perseda, whom my heart no more can fly than iron can adamant, her late unkindness would have changed my mind.
Enter Guelpio and Julio with Piston.
How now, Erastus? Wherein may we pleasure thee?
Sirs, it is thus. We must in mummery unto Lucina, neither for love nor hate, but if we can to win the chain she wears. For though I have some interest therein, fortune may make me master of mine own, rather than I'll seek justice against the dame. But this assure yourselves, it must be mine, by game or change, by one device or other. The rest I'll tell you when our sport is done.
Why, then, let's make us ready and about it.
What store of crowns have you brought?
Fear not for money, man. I'll bear the box.
I have some little relay if need require.
Aye, but hear you, master. Was not he a fool that went to shoot and left his arrows behind him?
Yes, but what of that?
Marry, that you may lose your money and go without the chain, unless you carry false dice.
Mass, the fool says true. Let's have some got.
Nay, I use not to go without a pair of false dice. Here are tall men and little men.
High men and low men, I would say.
Come, sirs, let's go. Drumsler, pray for me, and I'll reward thee. And Sirrah Piston, mar not our sport with your foolery.
I warrant you, sir, they get not one wise word of me.
Okay, so they've dressed up for a mummery, so they're going to go and do one of the games that mummers will do. So just to give us a bit of context of what's going on there, is turning up at a house with, and it's part of a game. Everyone knows that this might be going on with loaded dice, so that the people in the household will give you money as part of this game that is being played, as well as whatever else you do in a mummery, which is very much up to the individual mummers. Yeah, so that is something that the audience at the time would know automatically. It's not that they're trying to, there's nothing nefarious about the weighted dice that they're talking about here. It's a convention.
I mean, it's a bit nefarious. He could just say, hey, lady, I don't know how you got hold of that chain, but it was mine. My sweetie gave it to me.
Oh, yeah, well, yes. I mean, beyond, yeah. But in the sense of mummers doing it is not... The fact that they're not really mummers, that's the nefarious thing. But yes. Mummers don't do it for nefarious. It is an understood game. That was the point I was trying to make very badly. Other thoughts? Helen?
Yeah, I mean, following on from what Aliki said, if Perseda had said to the lady, what a lovely chain, where did you get it?
You're not asking characters to talk to each other, are you?
These people are complete idiots.
Yeah, but how many television dramas do we have, or films do we have today that are entirely dependent on people not communicating properly with each other? I mean, we're just going, no, just tell them of the thing. Just say it out loud. So it's this kind of contrivance is feels very modern in that sense, in the sense that it's very shop worn. Other thoughts, Lynn?
I was amused by the fact that as Erastus is entering, Perseda says, I'll frame myself to his dissembling art. And that resolve lasts about a dozen lines before she just lights into him. She's smarter than I am? Well, she is older.
Yeah, and it's a good speech, I think, from Perseda there. It seemed to work very nicely. I don't know what thoughts on the room on that. But yeah, it's just Emma.
Just to add on, about that speech, I kind of saw as we went through it, about half of the lines ended in a question mark, but then she went straight on. He never got a chance to speak. I just imagine him going, yes, I can answer that and that and that. Just let me know, okay?
Or I'm not so sure whether I get the impression of him going, I've got nothing.
Yeah.
As a response, Briony.
Yeah, I found it really well written. Like, it was so easy to just build with it, with each of the questions, especially with the repetition. And like, yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah, and then we get a lot of Erastus. He's talking about fortune. He's talking about love. He sort of calls on love to give him a good idea. Give me a plan, love. While fortune is throwing. I mean, fortune does seem to be on the up so far in this this scene that we've had. This ongoing, flowing scene. There is no meaningful break in any of the section that we've done so far. People enter two other people. And yeah, people are constantly sense that Fortune's wheel is just constantly just turning round here for individuals as we go, and he's going, "Love, help me," which no response so far. No response so far from love. Rachael.
Well, wasn't there a part where earlier where he says something about love, and he switches over to fortune, like he says something about fortune? I'll look it up and jump.
Yeah, I think there is. I think there's an awful lot of people calling on the difference between love and fortune, which coincidentally is the title of a play that we've done not that long ago. Yeah, nobody's really calling on death. I wonder why. Because we haven't got that far, I think, is the fair thing. So yeah, I think that if we actually really pass this text and really went through all the references to love and fortune, we will find there are a lot of them in people talking about how their lives are going. I think it is nicely woven in that these figures outside of the story are constantly there, even if they're not there. Other thoughts? I say still midway through this scene. It's getting more complicated as it goes, but in a nice steady fashion that I like. Nice grip on the narrative. Okay, we will continue. So we've all dressed up as mummers. We've got your loaded dice. You've got your game plan. Piston always carries false dice around with him, so there's nothing dodgy about that at all. He's a useful servant. That he's got to top up his earnings somehow. So they sound up the drum. I don't have a drum. To Lucina's door, and enter Lucina.
Hi, Mary. This shows that Charlemagne is come. What, shall we play here? Content, since Signor Ferdinand will have it so.
Then they play, extemporize playing of some description. And when she have lost her gold, Erastus pointed to her chain, and then she says,
Aye, were it Cleopatra's union.
Then Erastus winneth the chain, and loseth his gold.
Signor Ferdinando, I'm sure 'tis you. And gentlemen, unmask ere you depart, that I may know to whom my thanks are due for this so courteous and unlooked for sport.
We can assume they all shake their heads vigorously. No.
No, wilt not be. Then sup with me tomorrow? Well, then I'll look for you. Till then, farewell.
And exit Lucina.
Gentlemen, each thing hath sorted to our wish. She took me for Ferdinando, mark you that. Your gold shall be repaired with double thanks, and fellow drumseller, I'll reward you well.
Is there no reward for my false dice?
Yes, sir, a guarded suit from top to toe.
Enter Ferdinando.
Dazzle mine eyes, or is't Lucina's chain? False treacher, lay down the chain that thou hast stolen.
He lewdly lies that calls me treacherous.
That lie my weapon shall put down thy throat.
And then Erastus slays Ferdinando.
Fly, Erastus, ere the governor have any news, whose near ally he was and chief delight.
Nay, gentlemen, fly you and save yourselves, lest you partake the hardness of my fortune.
Exit Guelpio and Julio.
Oh, fickle and blind guidress of the world, what pleasure hast thou in my misery? Was not enough, when I have lost the chain, thou didst bereave me of my dearest love. But now, when I should repossess the same, to cross me with this hapless accident. Ah, but if time and place would give me leave, great ease it were for me to purge myself and to accuse fell fortune, love, and death, for all these three conspire my tragedy. But danger waits upon my words and steps. I dare not stay, for if the governor surprise me here, I die by martial law. Therefore I go. Whither shall I go? If into any stay adjoining roads, they will betray me to Philippo's hands for love, gain, or flattery. To Turkey itself must I go. The passage short, the people warlike, and the king renowned for all heroical and kingly virtues. Hard attempt to tempt a foe for aid. Necessity yet says it must be so. I'll suffer death for Ferdinando's death, whom honor's title forced me to misdo by checking his outrageous insolence. Piston, here, take this chain and give it to Perseda, and let her know what hath befallen me. When thou deliver it, take ship and follow me. I will be in Constantinople. Farewell, my country, dearer than my life. Farewell, dear friends, dearer than country soil. Farewell, Perseda, dearest of me, dearer to me than all the world besides.
And exit Erastus to join the B-plot.
Now, am I growing in a doubtful agony, what I were best to do? To run away with this chain, or deliver it and follow my master? If I deliver it and follow my master, I shall have thanks, but they will make me never the fatter. If I run away with it, I may live upon credit all the while I wear this chain, or domineer with the money when I have sold it. Hitherto all goes well. But if I be taken, I marry, sir, then the case is altered, aye, and haltered too. Of all things I do not love to preach with an halter about my neck. Therefore, for this once, I'll be honest against my will. Perseda shall have it. But before I go, I'll be so bold as to dive into the gentleman's pocket for good luck's sake, if he deny me not. How say you, sir? Are you content? A plain case, qui tacet constiri videtur.
And so Piston duly robs the body of Ferdinando. Unfortunately for him, enter Philippo and Julio has the next short line.
See where his body lies.
Aye, I see his body all too soon. Barbarous villainess that rifles him. Ah, Ferdinando, the stay of my old age, and chief remainder of our progeny, our loving cousin, how art thou misdone by false Erastus? I know by treachery, for well thy valour hath been often tried, but whilst I stand and weep and spend the time in fruitless plaints, the murderer will escape without revenge, soul salve for such a sore. Say, villain, wherefore didst thou rifle him?
Faith, sir, for pure goodwill. Seeing he was going towards heaven, I thought to see if he had a passport to St. Nicholas, or no.
Some sot he seems to be. 'Twere pity to hurt him. Sirrah, canst thou tell who slew this man?
Aye, sir, very well. It was my master, Erastus.
Thy master? And whither is he gone now?
To fetch the sexton to bury him, I think.
'Twere pity to imprison such a sot.
Now it fits my wisdom to counterfeit the fool.
Come hither, sirrah. Thou knowest me for the governor of the city, dost thou not?
Aye, forsooth, sir.
Thou art a bondman, and wouldst fain be free?
Aye, forsooth, sir.
Then do but this, and I will make thee free, and rich withal. Learn where Erastus is, and bring me word, and I'll reward thee well.
That I will, sir. I shall find you at the castle, shall I not?
Yes?
Why, I'll be here as soon as ever I come again.
Exit Piston.
But for assurance that he may not escape, we'll lay the ports and havens round about, and let the proclamation straight be made that he can bring forth the murderer, shall have 3,000 ducats for his pain. Myself will see the body borne from hence, honoured with balm and funeral.
And exeunt, the stage is empty. We'll call that the end of a scene. Piston has got some great lines and some great moral questions. The moral questions of our time. Do you just sell the necklace or not? What do you do with that? And then, well, simple compromise. You're going to follow your master's instructions and rob a corpse. It's a good compromise. I think that's the middle way. Briony.
I think it's important to note that he got consent from the corpse.
Well, he wanted to see. Well, asked to see if the corpse would resist. I don't know if that's quite the same as asking consent.
Yes, who is silent gives consent. A maxim of law.
So yeah, that went well. But yeah, we've got that wonderful. What are you doing with the body? I was looking for a passport to St. Nicholas. Oh, it's very nicely done. Very nicely done. But yeah, who saw the murder coming? That's fortune. Fortune strikes as well as death. So it's 2 points, I think, awarded for this scene. Fortune, it's very difficult scoring everyone except Death. Death is straightforward. Death's scored 3 so far. I think Fortune's possibly 2, maybe even 2.5 in the play so far. Love, at the moment, is only down on 1, maybe 2, because in theory there were 2 couples, but it feels like Love should lose points as love turns to hate. I don't know how to score this anymore. I'm lost.
Well, the 2 couples, one is split up and the other one of them is dead. So that's it for Love.
So we're saying points can be taken away as well. It's subtractive as well as additive. Right? Okay. Helen.
One of the things that's interesting me about all these deaths is that nobody ever seems to have any dying words. It's just you die on a very, very short stage direction.
I think at the Turkish court they did get a one-liner, and that, but they didn't get a death speech. You're right. Very pithy.
Nor do you have much of a fight.
Well, if he's quick and he's not expecting it, then yeah. Yeah, lots of thought. Sorry, who's wanting to come in? Rachael.
No, I was gonna say for the guy that Erastus just killed, Ferdinando. I think Ferdinando yesterday was saying that he was gonna murder Erastus. So I wonder if Chekhov's gun or whatever, if that was if Ferdinando was firing a blank and Erastus flipped it back on him.
He brought a knife to a gunfight, didn't he?
The flipping of fortunes, turning of fortunes, that change of fortune.
Yeah. No, I really like that, and yeah, the turning of fortune. And Erastus gets this thing that he's going to have to flee. He's going to join the B plot. He's going to Turkey. We know that the Turks will embrace him if he's a decent traitor. I'm sure that's going to go well. So yeah, there's a lot going on. And I say we had the whole mumming sequence. Of course, the mumming sequence has no dialogue because mummers don't speak. It's part of the game. So there's a whole dumb show thing, and I really like in Lucina's dialogue that we've got this, oh, it's you, isn't it? It's you. Go on, take your costume off. oh no, never mind. You know, and all these this sort of mime work that's going on, and oh, will we have dinner later? Yeah, of course. Mimes enthusiastically. Yes, and yeah, that's not going to happen. So we have comedy, and this sort or this activity, and then suddenly death strikes, and there's a real sense of how precarious everybody is in this play, because we've got these forces we know are waiting in the wings to just leap in and do things to people, rather than a play where you don't have these figures, where, you know, it might seem random that happened, but actually it's not random at all, because it's been mandated on some level, perhaps, he said, randomly. Aliki.
It occurs to me that what you just said about this part of this act also applies to the previous act, where we had comedy, romance, comedy scene, and then hardcore heavy politics scenes, 2 stabbings, end of act.
Mm. Yeah, and we're not even at the end of the act yet.
Right, so it's accelerating.
Yeah, well, we don't know how. I don't know what the body count will be for this act. Other thoughts before we do these sort of concluding units of action for this act? Okay, so I'm calling this another scene. It could be considered effectively the same unit, because Piston basically walks out of one door and walks in from another, with a very short break of Philippo's speech of about 6-7 lines. But we'll call this scene 2 for admin purposes. So Piston, however, now returns.
God sends fortune to fools. Did you ever see a wise man escape as I have done? I must betray my master. Aye, but when? Can you tell? See where Perseda comes to save me a labour. After my most hearty commendations, this is to let you understand that my master was in good health at the sending hereof. Yours for ever and ever and ever, in most humble wise, Piston.
Then he delivers her the chain.
This makes me think that I have been too cruel. How got he this off Lucina's arm?
Faith, in a mummery and a pair of false dice. I was one of the mummers myself, simple as I stand here.
I rather think it cost him very dear.
Aye, so it did, for it cost Ferdinando his life.
How so?
Well, after we got the chain in mummery and lost our box in countercambio, my master wore the chain about his neck. Then Ferdinando met us on the way and reviled my master, saying he stole the chain. With that they drew, and there Ferdinando had the prickado.
And whither fled my poor Erastus then?
To Constantinople, whither I must follow him. But ere he went, with many sighs and tears, he delivered me the chain and bade me give it you, for perfect argument that he was true, and you too credulous.
Oh, stay no more, for I can hear no more.
And I can sing no more.
My heart had armed my tongue with injury to wrong my friend whose thoughts were ever true. Ah, poor Erastus, how thy stars malign, thou great commander of the swift-winged winds, and dreadful Neptune, bring him back again. But Aeolus and Neptune, let him go, for here is nothing but revenge and death. Then let him go, I'll shortly follow him, now with slow sails, but with love's golden wings. My ship shall be borne with tears and blown with sighs. So will I soar about the Turkish land until I meet Erastus, my sweet friend, and then and there fall down amid his arms, and in his bosom there pour forth my soul for satisfaction of my trespass past.
Enter Basilisco armed.
Fair love, according unto thy command, I seek Erastus and will combat him.
Ay, seek him, find him, and bring him to my sight, for till we meet my heart shall want delight.
My pretty fellow, oh, my pretty fellow, where hast thou hid thy mask?
Marry, sir, in an armourer's shop, where you had not best go to him.
Why so? I am in honour bound to combat him.
Ay, sir, but he, knowing your fierce conditions, hath planted a double cannon in the door, ready to discharge it upon you when you go by. I tell you, for pure goodwill.
In knightly courtesy I thank thee, but hopes the coistrel to escape me so? Thinks he bare cannon shot can keep me back. Why, wherefore serves my target of proof but for the bullet, that once put by, I roughly come upon him, like to the wings of lightning from above. I with a martial look astonish him, then falls he down, poor wretch, upon his knee, and all too late repents his Sir Quadri. Then do I take him on my finger's point, and thus I bear him through every street, to be a laughing stock to all the town. That done, I lay him at my mistress' feet, for her to give him doom of life or death.
Ay, but hear you, sir, I am bound in pain of my master's displeasure to have a bout of cuffs afore you and I part.
Eagles are challenged by paltry flies. Thy folly gives thee privilege. Begone.
No, sir, I must have a bout with you, sir, that's flat, lest my master turn me out of service.
Why, art thou weary of thy life?
No, by my faith, sir.
Then fetch thy weapons, and with my single fist I'll combat thee, my body all unarmoured.
Why, lend me thine, to save me a labour?
I tell thee, if Alcides lived this day, he could not wield my weapons.
Well, wilt thou stay till I come again?
I upon my honour.
That shall be when I come from Turkey.
Exit Piston.
Is this little desperate fellow gone? Doubtless. He is a very tall fellow, and yet it were a disgrace to all my chivalry to combat one so base. I'll send some crane to combat with the pygmy, not that I fear, but that I scorn to fight.
And exit Basilisco. We go into what we may call a final scene. Enter chorus of love, fortune, and death. So let's have the results of the scoring so far. Let's see where we are.
Fortune, thou madest Ferdinando find the chain, but yet by love's instruction he was taught to make a present of it to his mistress.
But fortune would not let her keep it long.
Nay, rather love, by whose suggested power Erastus used such dice as being false, ran not by fortune but necessity.
Meantime I brought Ferdinando on the way, to see and challenge what Lucina lost.
And by that challenge I abridged his life, and forced Erastus into banishment, parting him from his love, in spite of love.
But with my golden wings I'll follow him, and give him aid and succour in distress.
And doubt not too, but fortune will be there, and cross him too, and sometimes flatter him, and lift him up, and throw him down again.
And here and there, in ambush, death will stand, to mar what love or fortune takes in hand.
And they exit. So by going by what they said and how that worked, Love says she scored a point. Fortune said, actually, no, you didn't score a point. I took that point away from you. No, I scored another point, says Love. Fortune says, but I then did something else, so I gained an extra point. So it's 2-1 to Love at that stage. Then Death says he killed someone, and then Love says there's another point to me, and then they say they're going to get. So by my reckoning here, it's for this act, Fortune and Love are claiming 2 points each. Death is claiming 1 for this act, which overall I think leaves us after the first act, Fortune and Death drawing on about 3 points each, and Love possibly still only on 2, question mark, maybe 3. So it's actually quite close. It's quite close by their reckoning. But I'm feeling there's a lot of modifiers to go into this scoring system. So yeah, at the moment it could be 3-3. But it could be much less. I still think Death's going to win.
Death always wins.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've got more business here. If we want to call this a separate scene. But yeah, Piston delivers the chain. Perseda goes, "Oh my God, what have I done? I'll follow him," and then Basilisco comes in, and yeah, it gives us more evidence as to the height of Piston and the probability that it is a boy. Briony.
It strikes me that Perseda kind of forgets to tell Basilisco that she doesn't want him dead anymore. She sort of says, "Yeah, no, do go and find him and bring him to me," and he's like, "Yeah, I'll go and find him and kill him."
Yeah, like, undoing previous orders.
Bad communication.
Yeah, they're not very good at communicating, any of them, are they? Lynn.
Doesn't actually Basilico or whatever say something about, "Okay, I'll go and get him and lay him at my mistress' feet, and then she can pronounce on him"? Isn't that what he says?
I think he means the corpse.
Oh.
But maybe she doesn't realise that's what he means. It's all going to be a terrible misunderstanding. Helen.
I rather like Piston's delivery of the chain. He concocts a letter. "After my most hearty commendations" is the way you would start a letter. "This is to let you understand that my master was in good health at the sending hereof. Yours forever and ever and ever, in most humble wise." I mean, it's straight out of a book of models for correspondence.
And we've had that recently in another play where someone basically addresses someone in the form of a letter. I forget which one it was now, but we've done it recently. But yeah, absolutely. "Yours forever and ever and ever." You know, it's again leaning even further to boy. You know, that's the kind of language we expect. I like that very much as well. Briony.
I like the little match of the day framing bit at the end as well, with the chorus coming back on and doing their scores bit, just to round off the act nicely, nice and tidy. And some of the imagery as well is it's almost like you can see a voodoo doll just being abused. The way Fortune says about picking him up and throwing him back down and stuff. I like that.
Yeah, they're enjoying themselves. You can tell. Helen.
Yes, and Piston says that his master's hiding in an armourer's shop, and he's got a double cannon, the double cannon was a big brute, loaded, ready, and it's going to fire at him, and he goes past. I mean, he has a very fertile imagination, has young Piston.
This is an excellent part, it has to be said. It works incredibly well.
And his stupidity with the commanders.
Oh yeah, pretend to be stupid.
Where's your master? Gone to get a sexton to bury him.
I think. Yeah.
And yeah, no, just checking your address. I'll find you at the castle, won't I? Yeah. Oh, excellent. Yes, I'm definitely coming back. Definitely coming back. Yeah.
And he's hoping that Basilisco is going to be standing on the street corner waiting for him to come back after he gets back from Turkey.
Yeah, just nipping down to the shops, getting some eggs. Lynn.
Yeah, this play. I actually haven't looked at the video from yesterday yet. So, but still, got a couple of people just stabby in the court, and now Ferdinando's dead. But you have this hilarious boy servant character and this hilarious Miles Gloriosa character. I mean, the way this thing reels between comedy and tragedy is making me a little motion sick.
Yeah, it's sending us back to those giddy days of Spanish tragedy and in waves. It works. I'm really enjoying this. We may be about to hit areas where we have more pause for thought, as we had last time with the end of Act 1, as we go into Act 3, because of course it is called Soliman and Perseda. And the B plot has just been quietly rumbling in the background, but now we've got lots of people journeying to visit the B plot. So the A and the B plot are going to collide, I'm sure, soon, and that may create all sorts of problematic conjunctions that we will discuss as we go. Okay, any additional thoughts on Act 2 before we dive into Act 3? No. Okay, Act 3, we'll call this Scene 1. I have no idea how many scenes there are. Enter Soliman and Brusor with Janissaries.
How long shall Solomon spend his time and waste his days in fruitless obsequies? Perhaps my grief and long continual moan adds but little trouble to my brother's ghosts, which, but for me, would have now took their rest. And farewell sorrow, and now revenge draw near. In controversy touching the Isle of Rhodes, my brothers died. On Rhodes I'll be revenged. Now, tell me, Brusor, what's the news at Rhodes? Hath the young Prince of Cyprus married Cornelia, daughter to the governor?
He hath, my lord, with the greatest pomp that e'er I saw at such a festival.
What, greater than at our coronation?
Inferior to that only.
At tilt, who won the honour of the day?
A worthy knight of Rhodes, a matchless man. His name Erastus, not 20 years of age, not tall, but well proportioned in his limbs. I never saw, except your excellence, a man whose presence more delighted me. And, had he worshipped Mahomet for Christ, he might have borne me throughout all the world. So well I loved and honoured the man.
These praises, Brusor, touch me to the heart, and make me wish that I had been at Rhodes under the habit of some errant knight, both to have seen and tried his valour.
You should have seen him foil and overthrow all the knights that there encountered him.
Whate'er he be, even for his virtue's sake, I wish that fortune of our holy wars would yield him prisoner unto Soliman, that for retaining one so virtuous, we may ourselves be famed for virtues. But let him pass. And Brusor, tell me now, how did the Christians use our knights?
As if that we and they had been one sect.
What thinkst thou of their valour and demeanour?
Brave men at arms, and friendly out of arms, courteous in peace, in battle dangerous, kind to their foes, and liberal to their friends, and all in all, their deeds heroical.
Then tell me, Brusor, how is Rhodes fenced? For either Rhodes shall be brave Solomons, or cost me more brave soldiers than all the isle will bear.
Their fleet is weak. Their horse, I deem them 50,000 strong. Their footmen more, well exercised in war. And as it seems, they want no needful victual.
However Rhodes be fenced by sea or land, it either shall be mine or bury me.
And at this point, having mentioned him earlier, by a strange coincidence, enter Erastus.
What is he that thus boldly enters in? His habit argues him a Christian.
Aye, worthy lord, a forlorn Christian.
Tell me, man, what madness brought thee hither?
Thy virtuous fame, and mine own misery.
What misery? Speak, for though you Christians account our Turkish race but barbarous, yet we have ears to hear the just complaint, and justice to defend the innocent, and pity to such as are in poverty, and liberal hands to merit such as merit bounty.
My gracious sovereign, as this knight seems by grief tied to silence, so his deserts bind me to speak for him. This is Erastus, the Rhodian worthy, the flower of chivalry and courtesy.
Is this the man that thou hast so described? Stand up, fair knight, that what my heart desires, mine eyes may view with pleasure and delight. This face of thine should harbour no deceit. Erastus, I'll not yet urge to know the cause that brought thee hither, lest with the discourse thou shouldst afflict thyself, and cross the fullness of my joyful passion. But that we are assured, heavens brought thee hither for our benefit. Know thou that roads, nor all that roads contain, shall win thee from the side of Soliman, if we but find thee well inclined to us.
If any ignoble or dishonourable thoughts should dare attempt or but creep near my heart, honour should force disdain to roost it out. As air-bred eagles, if they once perceive that any of their brood but close their sight when they should gaze against the glorious sun, they straightway seize upon him with their talents, that on the earth it may untimely die, for looking but askew at heaven's bright.
Erastus, to make thee well assured how well thy speech and presence liketh us, ask what thou wilt, it shall be granted thee.
Then this, my gracious lord, is all I crave, that being banished from my native soil, I may have liberty to live a Christian.
Why that, or anything thou shalt desire. Thou shalt be captain of our janissaries, and in our council shalt thou sit with us, and be great Solomon's adopted friend.
The least of these surpass my best desert, unless true loyalty may seem desert.
Erastus, now thou hast obtained thy boon, did I not Soliman this one request? A virtuous envy pricks me with desire to try thy valour. Say, art thou content?
Aye, if my sovereign say content, I yield.
Then give us swords and targets, and now, Erastus, think thee mine enemy, but ever after thy continual friend, and spare me not, for then thou wrongst my honour.
And then they fight, and Erastus overcomes Soliman, who speaks next.
Nay, Erastus, throw not down thy weapons as if thy force did fail. It is enough that thou hadst conquered Soliman by strength. By courtesy let Soliman conquer thee. And now from arms to council sit thee down. Before thy coming I vowed to conquer Rhodes. Say, wilt thou be our lieutenant there, and further us in manage of these wars?
Gracious sovereign, without presumption, if poor Erastus may once more entreat, let not great Solomon's command, to whose behest I vow obedience, enforce me sheathe my slaughtering blade in the dear bowels of my countrymen. And were it not that Soliman hath sworn, my tears should plead for pardon in that place. I speak not this to shrink away for fear, or hide my head in time of dangerous storms. Employ me elsewhere in thy foreign wars against the Persians or the barbarous Moor. Erastus will be foremost in the battle.
Why fearest thou thy countrymen so much, by whose cruelty thou art exiled?
It's not my country, but Philippo's wrath, it must be told, for Ferdinando's death, whom I in honour's cause have reft of life.
Nor suffer this or that to trouble thee. Thou shalt not need Philippo nor his isle, nor shalt thou war against thy countrymen. I like thy virtue in refusing it. But that our oath may have his current course, Brusor, go levy men. Prepare a fleet to assault and conquer Rhodes. Meantime, Erastus and I will strive by mutual kindness to excel each other. Brusor, be gone, and see not Soliman till thou hast brought Rhodes in subjection.
And exit Brusor.
And now, Erastus, come and follow me, where thou shalt see what pleasures and what sports my minions and my eunuchs can devise to drive away this melancholy mood.
Exit Soliman, enter Piston.
Oh, master, see where I am.
Say, Piston, what's the news at Rhodes?
Oh, cold and comfortless for you. Will you have them all at once?
Aye.
Why, the governor will hang you, and he kept you. Ferdinando is buried. Your friends commend them to you. Perseda hath the chain, and is like to die for sorrow.
Oh, that's the grief that we are parted thus. Come, follow me, and I will hear the rest, for I must now attend the emperor.
And they exit. What an interesting scene, doing all sorts of different things. Some which seem on the surface positive, and then other things where you're going, well, there's interesting logic in play here. My friends died because they were arguing about roads, so I will revenge myself on roads. Perfectly good logic there. Then asking these sort of pointed questions about how did the Christians use our knights? Well, the Christians were really nice to us, weren't they? Yes, they were. And I go, yes, I'm sure. So there's all sorts of things that this text is trying to do. And then it's a case of, will you be my friend? Let's fight. It's like one of those sort of 60s adventure serials, like going, well, we're 20 minutes in. Have we had a fight yet? No, let's have a fight for no apparent reason. Erastus bests him, bests Soliman, who's really courteous and nice about it. Yeah, it's and I am now curious as to what sports his minions and his eunuchs are going to devise here. I don't know. This way this culture is being portrayed here is very odd. Eric.
I was just gonna say that at the beginning, Soliman is kind of like, I want a friend, someone to talk to, and then Brusor, give me the war report, kind of, and then it shifts to talking about roads and stuff, and then just somehow finds a friend, because friends are most important.
Yeah, I also like the way that Brusor says it was a really great show I went to. It was really good, and it's good, better than ours. Well, a slightly just under. It was almost as good. Helen.
Yeah, that I was going to point that one out, and then later on he says he's talking about Erastus and saying, I never saw, except your excellence, a man whose presence more delighted me. So it seems that Soliman requires a certain amount of crawling, which means that I was very surprised, because I thought that when Erastus bested him, this would be a no-no. I didn't hold out much hope for Erastus after he'd managed to defeat Soliman. But I was wrong.
I think there's a question in performance as to what sort of games are going on here, but also that wider question of how this Turkish court is being portrayed here. I mean, there's a lot of sort of exoticism and that's going on of this strain. These people who are doing. Who are running a court in a very different way to the very formal, celebrations that are going on with Cyprus on Rhodes, is where we have a tournament and everything is very ordered, and whereas here people get angry and stab each other, and decisions are made by a wrestling match, and while people are talking in this elevated style, that there's an underlying violence, and say that this is the way these characters are being portrayed, and this civilization is being portrayed. So there's a lot of questions in performance as to what the performers and the production are doing with that. Rachael, and then Aliki.
No, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like even more blatant than yesterday, like the exoticism and that. I don't know, I put in the chat before that, like, Islamophobia that you have in this writing, that I think is less a character choice and more on the writer. But also the wrestling part, like in yesterday's session, Erastus made friends from the jousting match, from beating people. So I don't know if it's partially like I don't know, like that people see him as a manly man or something, but it has something to do with the view of masculinity and that he's like a manly man, even though he doesn't look it. But yeah, it's kind of more like over blatant, weird portrayal of these of Solomon's.
And this is this portrayal is complicated by the fact that the time this play is being written, enormous overtures and trading and diplomatic relations between Turkey is going on. So there is a sense of trying to portray. You would get the impression that the writer is trying to portray a relatively balanced account, but it's still being exoticized at the same time. So it's not necessarily being too anti to these characters. It's just more a question of how well the play is doing that, and what traps the playwright is falling into, and also what several hundred years has all additionally added in layers to this text for an audience today. Aliki.
So I was going to say that Europeans, 100 years later, probably knew more about Solomon's reign than any other Ottoman sultan. He was around for a really long time, nearly 50 years. And he made war on Christian Europe kind of pretty much from the word go in Hungary and generally kind of Eastern Europe as well as Rhodes. So given kind of, on the one hand, that he is a figure known for huge war success against Christendom, if you like, and on the other, that he's this kind of huge, larger-than-life figure in European politics and history, I think he's not doing too badly, really.
Yeah, it is. In that sense, he's not coming across as an out-and-out villain. In that sense, it's just that there are checks and balances. It's just it's all the various forces as already mentioned, which we're still very much getting a grips on, and additional thoughts and commentators are very much wanted on these points. We'll need to move on in a moment, but Rachael.
No, sorry to jump back in here, but I was gonna say, the Swiss just passed a law, like, banning people from wearing, hijabs and I think they're called nakibs, the ones where it covers the front of your face. So even though, this portrayal is problematic, and I don't think it's the cause of things like that. I think it's like how we were talking with about Lily, how even though these portrayals aren't the best, these things do bring up conversation, because there is still, Islamophobia and hate crimes, and I guess hate laws against people that are coming about. So I think some discussion of these things, and that we're discussing it now, is still relevant and important.
Other thoughts before we move on, as we fly back to some other characters? Alan.
I'm just looking at the beginning of what we're now going to be calling scene 2. I assume we're back on Rhodes.
Well, it depends whether they've got off roads yet. In theory, they might be following on, so they might be somewhere else. I don't know. Let's find out by reading it. So, indeed, what we're calling Act 3, Scene 2. Enter Perseda, Lucina, and Basilisco, and let's find out what's going on with them and where they are.
Accursed chain, unfortunate Perseda.
Accursed chain, unfortunate Lucina. My friend is gone and I am desolate.
My friend is gone and I am desolate. Return him back, fair stars, or let me die.
Return him back, fair heavens, or let me die. For what was he but comfort of my life?
For what was he but comfort of my life? But why was I so careful of the chain?
Why was I so careless of the chain? Had I not lost it, my friend had not been slain.
Had I not asked for it, my friend had not departed, his parting my death.
His death's my departing, and here my tongue doth stay with swollen heart's grief.
And here my swollen heart's grief doth stay my tongue.
For whom weep you?
Ah, for Ferdinando's dying.
For whom mourn you?
Ah, for Erastus is flying.
Why, lady, is not Basilisco here? Why, lady, doth not Basilisco live? Am not I worth both these for whom you mourn? Then take each one half of me and cease to weep. Or if you gladly would enjoy me both, I'll serve that one by day, the other by night, and I will pay you both your sound delight.
Oh, how unpleasant is mirth to melancholy.
My heart is full, I cannot laugh at folly.
And exit the ladies.
See, Lucina hates me like a toad, because that, when Erastus spake my name, her love Ferdinando died at the same. So dreadful is our name to cowardice. On the other side, Perseda takes it unkindly, that, ere he went, I brought not bound unto her. Erastus, that faint-hearted runaway, alas, how could I? For his man no sooner informed him that I sought him up and down. But he was gone in twinkling of an eye. But I will, after my delicious love, for well I wot, though she dissemble thus, and cloak affection with her modesty, with love of me her thoughts are overgone, more than was Phyllis with her Demophon.
And exit Basilisco. Yeah, this interesting overlapping grief. I think, yes, Alan's right. We are back on roads there. Still, they haven't left. This grief competition. I don't know if it is actively a competition, whether they're trying to outdo each other or they just happen to be in parallel. And then Basilisco puts what's probably in his mind an entirely reasonable proposition. And they're going, no, we have no time for laughter now. Go away. And that's a really interesting... That's almost... I'm just wondering if that's a play statement as well. The play's getting darker. It's almost like we're halfway through, pretty much. Maybe fewer jokes now. I don't know. I don't know because I don't know precisely how the play's going to flow going forward. But I just wonder if that's almost a meta thing of just actually saying the play's not going to be as funny like this anymore. There may be less of this. Briony.
I just love Basilisco, though, the sheer cheek of just like in their moment of grief, just come on, ladies, let's have a threesome. Cracking.
Yeah, never. Yeah, what a guy. What a guy. Yeah, well, you know, yeah. I've got nothing. Any other thoughts? Before we go on to the next scene, Alan, then Helen.
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting one, and it relates back to a query I made on the script right at the beginning, which is this one where lines get echoed verbatim by the next person speaking, which maybe is a trope that this particular playwright was using at this time.
My memory of Spanish tragedy, there's a fair amount of similar kind of textual effects are being played with. So, but I could be wrong. It's been a year. Aliki.
No, I was just going to say there are some similar echoes within speeches. I noticed it in one of Erastus's. He says the same thing in slightly different words twice, and I think it's very deliberate. It made it kind of go, oh, I have to remember that thing, blah blah blah. I have to remember that thing, which is really kind of naturalistic and human. Whereas when it's the other character echoing it, it feels much more formal and mannered.
Helen.
Yeah, I thought for a moment that Basilisco had got some self-knowledge. Lucina hates me like a toad. But in fact, he doesn't see himself as a toad at all. because this hatred he puts down entirely to a circumstance, and that this dislike is obviously irrational because his name was being spoken when her love died, and the same irrational thought makes Perseda dislike him. And it's got absolutely nothing to do with his inherent qualities, which are, of course, magnificent.
He is fabulous. Lynn?
Yeah, I would be so curious to see how this play overall, and particularly the scene, plays in front of an audience. And the tone is going to be so hard to manage. Starting with the echoing, is that kind of a lovely formal feature, or does that sort of underscore the absurdity of the situation? And I really like Rob's conjecture that maybe there's a meta moment when the women say, mirth and melancholy don't go together. I'm not laughing at this ridiculousness. But on the other hand, Basilisco goes on to like just keep being his ridiculous self. So it's just like the tension between tragedy and comedy here is so interesting. And I would be willing to bet that if you did a production of this, the audience's experience would change every night. There were some nights where the scene would get a laugh, and some nights where people would be like, "Ew." So it's really interesting.
No, I think there's so much coming out of this that actually we don't really have time to properly unpack, which is a shame. Other thoughts that people want to share to the room before we move on, because we have lots of short scenes. What I'm thinking of are individual short scenes, though effectively there are almost a filmic montage of action going overlapping each other, but we'll take them one at a time. So we'll call it Act 3, Scene 3. Enter Philippo, the Prince of Cyprus. Haven't seen Philippo for a while. With other soldiers, so soldierly type action now.
Brave Prince of Cyprus and our son-in-law, now there is little time to stand and talk. The Turks have passed our galleys and are landed. You, with some men-at-arms, shall take the tower. I, with the rest, will down into the strand. If we be beaten back, we'll come to you. And here, in spite of damned Turks, we'll gain a glorious death or famous victory.
About it, then.
And they exit. So, yes, we have, following on from that scene, a short scene of, the invasion has begun. There's no mark for alarums in this particular text. That doesn't mean it might exist in other versions. But yeah, I feel that the need of drums and trumpets here, and bells, and all the accoutrements of an invaded city. The bad things are coming. We won't comment on that for a moment, as we'll go into what we'll call Act 3, Scene 4. Enter the invaders, enter Brusor and his soldiers.
Drum, sound a parley to the citizens.
And presumably following a drum, the Prince of Cyprus appears on the walls.
What parley craves the Turkish at our hands?
We come with mighty Solomon's command, monarch and mighty emperor of the world, from east to west, from south to septentrion. If you resist, expect what war affords: mischief, murder, blood, and extremity. What, wilt thou yield and try our clemency? Say aye or no, for we are peremptory.
Your lord usurps all that he possesseth, and that great God which we do truly worship shall strengthen us against your insolence.
Now, if you plead for mercy, 'tis too late. Come, fellow soldiers, let us to the breach that's made already on the other side.
And exeunt to the battle. During the battle, Philippo and Cyprus are both slain. I don't know if that stage direction is of action. I hope it is, because I'm certainly in production. I think it is. I think it's important to see that Philippo and Cyprus, who we've just seen manning the walls, are dead. I find it interesting that Cyprus is calling, and saying, "Great God, which we do truly worship." That they're bringing up religious barriers here as part of their cry, which is very much what they were doing earlier. It's a contrast to the court of the Turks, where Erastus goes, so long as I can continue being a Christian, and they go, yeah, whatever. Again, whether that's wishful thinking or not, I think it is attested by actually some of the diplomatic missions that went to Turkey. So that may be first-hand. Aliki.
Yeah, the Ottomans ran a multi-ethnic and multi-religious empire and were much, much nicer to minority religions than the Christians were. Basically, you had to pay a heavier tax. There were certain jobs you were excluded from, but basically you had to pay a heavier tax, and otherwise you could live perfectly happily as whatever you wanted.
And yes, following on, Alan's just mentioned in the chat, echoes of Tamburlaine. We are pretty much bang on top of Tamburlaine at the moment. Dating for this is a bit tricky, but we can probably assume that it safely follows Tamburlaine. So this kind of play and this kind of demonstration of other cultures is very much in the moment as this play is coming out. We have another short scene that follows on directly after this. Philippo and Cyprus are both slain. Enter now Brusor with soldiers, having Guelpio and Julio, two minor characters who were in the mumming earlier, and Basilisco with Perseda and Lucina prisoners.
Now Rhodes is yoked and stoops to Soliman. There lies the governor, and there his son. Now let their souls tell sorry tidings to their ancestors. What millions of men, oppressed with ruin and scathe, the Turkish armies did in Christendom. What say these prisoners? Will they turn Turk or no?
It's embedded, but it is Julio's line.
I hadn't noticed.
So it's
first,
not properly
Julio will
formatted.
die 10,000 deaths.
Guelpio rather than deny it's Christ.
Then stab the slaves and send their souls to hell.
They stab Julio and Guelpio.
I turn. Oh, save my life, I turn.
Forbear to hurt him. When we land in Turkey, he shall be circumcised and have his rights.
Think you I turn Turk for fear of servile death? That's but a sport, if faith, sir, no. 'Tis for Perseda, whom I love so well, that I would follow her, though she went to hell.
Now for these ladies, their life's privilege hangs on their beauty. They shall be preserved, to be presented to great Soliman, the greatest honour fortune could afford.
The most dishonour that could e'er befall.
And they exit. So yes, we have this question of whether people will turn Turk. That's going to turn up in other plays that we've got lined up in the future, as well as here. The two, Julio and Guelpio, refuse and are killed. Basilisco, yes, immediately says he'll turn Turk, but then immediately tries to save face. So it's so again, talking about tone, this moment of, perfectly reasonable terror on his behalf here. What would you do if you were presented with that choice? And then he tries to say, well, I did it for these people, not because. So yeah, tonally, it's a comedy moment amidst horror, but it's very much in character and keeping. Lynn, then Briony, then Aliki.
Yeah, I think at that moment also serves to really, if he could go any lower, it brings that character even further down in our esteem, because not only does he do the most dishonorable thing that a Christian could do, forswear his religion, but then he lies about his reason for it. I did it because I wanted to be with this. Yeah, that's kind of a double whammy on any kind of sympathy or positive view out of that character up to now.
That's the thing about comedy characters. Just because they're comedy characters doesn't still mean that they're not really, really horrible, and that there are real world implications. But except there is an element. I feel a certain level of sympathy for him on the principle that if someone killed 2 people in front of me, I probably wouldn't demur. Briony.
I agree, but I think as well it's then further compounded, and he just gets really nailed by what Perseda then says afterwards, because she's got more balls than he has in her response.
Aliki.
So back to that question of comedy, which I think is really interesting, the possibility of clowning with death. And I think that's really actually realistic, because as anybody who has been in anything really unpleasant knows, you make jokes and that's how it goes by, or at least a lot of humans do. Having, just kind of big up to the Ottoman Empire in my earlier comment, I do have to say that yes, they did say convert to Islam or we'll kill you, to prisoners of war. Which isn't the same thing as the native conquered populations and how they treated them, which was generally quite good. And that's a really interesting conflation that's happened. To turn Turk, you can't become Turkish. This is an ethnicity. He's not offering to learn the language. He's saying he'll convert to the religion, which isn't Turkish. You see what I mean? Anymore, the empire has Turkish leadership, but is all over the Eastern Mediterranean and near Asia. Anyway, that's...
Yes, and people have other reasons for turning Turk as well, which we say we'll get to in different plays, and the conventions of the time as to the language they use and the names they use for different areas as well. The Turk is used as a very, very large descriptor for a lot of people.
I mean, it was a big empire.
Yeah.
But yeah, very large and very squishy. There was this sort of vague conflation of ethnicity and religion, and I just think the way Europeans thought about the Islamic world was extremely imprecise. To put it mildly.
Yeah, I mean, I've said as much in the chat. I come from a part of Europe that was conquered by the Ottoman Empire and lived under it for 200 years, so we see things slightly differently, perhaps, than further west. But still, even at the time that this was written, the folk memory of the threat of the great invader coming from the east must have been pretty strong.
And even though Elizabeth is pursuing policies to work work trading relations and also diplomatic relations with the Turkish Empire, that doesn't mean everyone in the country thought that was a good thing. So you have a tension there. That it's a question of what this play is, where this play is leaping, and it seems to be trying to walk a reasonably balanced line. Whether it's succeeding or not, of course, is partly down to the way it's the successful failure of the playwright. Helen, did you have additional thoughts?
Yeah, by the time you get to Elizabeth, there's something that doesn't appear in the play here, or certainly not so far, which is that the empire was largely being ruled by a woman, because it's the king's, the sultan's mother who has the power. And she won't communicate with men. So Elizabeth has an enormous advantage over other monarchs of Europe in that she can deal directly. The idea is that the Turks hate the Catholics and the English hate the Catholics, so the Turks and the English have a lot in common.
If only they could stop people raiding each other's ships.
True.
Yeah, which causes so many problems with trying to normalise relations. Anyway, we have one more scene to go. Let's find out. Let's go to the studio to find out what the pundits say about the success of the various teams. So into the studio now with the chorus, love, fortune, and of course death.
Now, Fortune, what hast thou done in this latter passage?
I placed Erastus in the favor of Soliman the Turkish emperor.
Nay, that was love, for I couched myself in poor Erastus's eye, and with a look, o'erspread with tears, bewitched Soliman. Beside, I sat on valiant Brusor's tongue to guide the praises of the Rhodian knight. Then, in the lady's passions, I showed my power, and lastly, love made Basilisco's tongue to countercheck his heart by turning Turk, and save his life in spite of death's despite.
How chanced it then that love and fortune's power could neither save Philippo, nor his son, nor Guelpio, nor Signor Julio, nor rescue Rhodes from out the hands of death?
Why, Brusor's victory was fortune's gift.
But had I slept, his conquest had been small.
Wherefore stay we? There's more behind, which proves that though love wink, love's not stark blind.
Right, exit. These attempts to discuss who did what. Love's really trying to steal a march here. I counted about 5 points Love was trying to steal in that speech. And Fortune tries to gain 1 point. And Death goes, right, well, I killed him, and him. And I captured... Lots of people died in the... I mean, there's an N number now being added here as to the uncounted death toll in the battle that's just followed. So Death and Love might be said to be on it more even. Love's really not doing... is trying to big up again there, right? And I think Fortune should have got more points there myself, but yeah. Lynn.
Yeah, I do feel like Love is moving the goalposts a little bit, as we say.
Yeah.
Because up to now, Love has, as a reader, I have presumed that Love is eros. Love is defined as erotic love, romantic love. But now Love wants to sort of expand the definition of what love is to include friendship, philia, homosocial attachment, as well as erotic attraction. So I feel like, yeah, that's me too. That thing between men, that's me too. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think Love's just feeling that actually, unless Love makes a power grab now, that Love is just so going to lose. Because so far, Love is technically scoring okay, but I think, if you sat down and really pass it, Love's not done well so far. Talking a big game, but not really delivering there. Helen.
Yeah, and Love has really bought Basilisco's lie that he turned Turk not out of fear, which would, I suppose, be Fortune, but out of love.
Yeah, which is clearly just rubbish.
Yeah, love will back him up.
Yeah, absolutely, Briony.
They're barely comparable, measures, because death is this absolute thing where you're like, yes, a point to death. We have a dead body. Death has definitely won this. But Fortune can be good or bad. And love, the counterpart of love is hate, but we haven't really been counting that. So it's just, there's no way to even accurately measure or compare these entities, but we're still trying. I like that.
It's little apples and oranges, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I really like about them, is the trying to put this down in absolute terms. It does feel like that Love, Fortune, and Death have got a podcast, and they're just basically gonna squeeze out an hour's worth of content for every incident that goes on, and just to argue the toss as to who scored more points than others. Emma.
I'm kind of enjoying the characterizations of these three that come out in this scene, and then looking back in the other ones as well, how Death has this kind of quiet confidence. He never speaks first. He always lets the other two, who are kind of more shrill, sort of start fighting first, and then he'll just sort of drop what he's done. Yeah, I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, Briony.
And from what I've seen in today's session, certainly Love seems to like to always have that last word as well.
Yeah, I think I was absolutely right on the whole thing of what does death do? Just sits there, waits, and then drops a corpse on the table. And that's what you get. That's what you get. Yeah. Other thoughts from the room on this closing action of the chorus? In a sense, I'm really enjoying it. I have to say, I'm enjoying Love, Fortune, and Death a lot as a dynamic. They're really good stealing parts as well in a play. You can really steal. With very few lines of dialogue, Death is just clearly winning hands down once again. You can't write bad dialogue for Death. It's a well-known scientific fact. It's impossible. You just can't do it. There's some great stuff. Okay, as we approach extra time, it's time for final thoughts about the play overall. We've got a lot of questions still to be resolved as to how it's all going to go. We've got lots of tonal questions. We've got various issues that in performance, I think are still... nothing's presenting itself as insuperable in performance so far. We've got some material that needs to be handled carefully, and certainly it's a question of casting and what you do with the cast and how you present the material. But at the moment, nothing is making me go, no, we need to put that in a box and walk away, which is always pleasing. That said, we haven't had the final session yet, so I'm really setting myself up for the curse of session 3. So we'll see what comes of that. But yeah, thoughts from the room so far, especially as now we've got more data in. Eric, I'll go to you first. You were here yesterday, so what do you think of the show so far? Thoughts, good and bad?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's got like the sort of problems of the ways representing Islamophobia, as we've said, but also it's making the Turkish characters more human at the beginning, at least. I don't know, maybe that's just me because I was reading Soliman today. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting how it's dealing with various things like race and religion and all that stuff. But it seems to have gone from like a lover's tragedy to a geopolitical war. So I don't quite understand how that happened. I'm like, what? You turn around, it suddenly changes like context.
Yeah, it creeps up on us, doesn't it? So in the first act, it was mostly about the love story and the tournament and the marriage and but I'm liking that we've gone from a wedding to this, and actually the journey's been really quite interestingly navigated in terms of structural storytelling. Aliki, do you have any final thoughts about this play?
Not really. I'm really enjoying it. I love the language. We haven't talked about it very much, but there's some really quite beautiful turns of phrase and conceits. And generally, I'm having a good time. I don't mind telling you that I have struggled a bit the last couple of weeks. I thought, it's a play. We're reading a play. Have to do it justice with some of them. But this one I'm really enjoying.
Yeah, we've had some troubles. I have to say I've been looking over my shoulder, getting quite worried, as going, what's coming next? Okay, hopefully that'll be fine, and I'm quite pleased that it is so far. Emma, any final thoughts? This is, I think, your last session with the play with us, so last chance to speak.
Yeah, not here tomorrow, but I'll read it in my own time. Yeah, kind of taking it all in, but there's just so much in it. It's the way it layers comedy and tragedy and comedy and dark comedy as well. I really like the passion of the young lovers, their gorgeous language, their imagery, and I think the role of Soliman is such a great role. It's really rich and complex, and I kind of especially like that scene we read today with when Erastus arrives and they become friends. It had this kind of underlying ominousness to it, even though he was being so nice to him. I don't know, there was something cleverly built in that it did feel ominous, the way I suppose he was plotting the downfall of Rhodes in the background. So yeah, really interested to see where that goes and where our sympathies lie with the character of Soliman.
Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's working well for me as a piece. I think the language is good. It runs at a reasonable pace. I'm quite keen on stuff which does move at pace rather than having long wodges. And I must admit, I was rather glad that Fernando was taken out of the plot, because his speeches I found a bit wearing.
Come on! He had some great
he had
great
some
come-ons.
great lines, but he just had too many of them. Was my feeling on it. And in terms of the problematic areas, the only bits I haven't really spotted anything today that would make the thing difficult to perform today. In these days, there were one or two issues in the earlier Turkish court scene where people were swearing by the Quran or by the Prophet, which might require a bit of care in the way they dealt. But the rest of it, given that you're accepting that you're effectively talking about imperialist wars, which seem to be acceptable these days where maybe they shouldn't be.
Helen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, as a historian, I have very little problems with any of this, because I see it as a historical artifact, not as an expression of how we feel now. And if you don't study how people felt then, what's the point? But that on one side, and no, I think it's a great play. I think there's an awful lot of character work to be done that we're skipping blithely over. I mean, there's barely anybody who hasn't got quite a lot of depth to them, which I must say I do like. And still, people are dying very quickly.
Well, I say death. I mean, we almost have a contractual obligation for death to still kill somebody per act.
Oh well, yeah. It's not. I'm not saying that they're not. I'm not saying they're dying in too many great numbers. I'm saying they're dying quickly. I'm just not used to this in early modern plays. If they don't get to say, "I die," I feel they haven't done it properly.
Yeah.
In 16 verses and a variety of keys.
Yeah, exactly. It's important stuff. Obviously, it wasn't written into the contracts yet. It will come. Rachael, any final thoughts?
No, I enjoy this one. A lot of what I wanted to say has already been said. What Helen just said about the historical thing, I think it's. I think that's very true. I also think that, the part of the history and the looking at the history is what are the parallels between now and then? Because even though the issues that we have might not spring from the same place, I think there's still Islamophobia, and I don't know, that maybe it's just my focus of, being American, and that we've been in a war in the Middle East forever, since before I was born. So, yeah, it's a very interesting play, and I do like the depth of the characters, and I think there is more room to explore in them.
Briony, final thoughts?
I'm really enjoying it. A lot of what I wanted to say has mostly been said. Just to further what Helen was saying, I'm glad she raised the point about these characters. I've read plays with you guys before where there's been a couple of standout characters, but this one, to me, everybody's really well rounded out. There's something in all of them, and I, in the reading today, probably went a bit more with stuff because I did feel that connection to, or an interpretation to the characters, because it's there in the words, which I really like. And I think the race issues with this play, it's the reason that it's probably a little bit easier to swallow than it is in other plays for me, is because it's the difference between casual racism and like capital R racism. It's not about portraying them badly per se, but it is this level of misunderstanding and ignorance in trying to make them exotic and put certain characteristics onto them that might not necessarily be so accurate. But I agree that there's definitely still a relevance, and it brings discussion points in a manageable way that could be used today.
Lynn, final thoughts?
Yes, what's really preoccupied me during this session is the fact that one really doesn't know where to have this play in terms of tone and genre. How would you actually do this? And so, one of the things I'm sort of turning over in my head is that maybe what a production would need to do or could do is really put a lot of emphasis on the meta-theatrical frame, that actually love, death, and fortune are the main characters. And then this is a show that they're putting on for us, so that we never forget that people aren't really dying. People aren't really, this is theater. If we always keep it in mind that this is theater, then the careening between genres and tones is maybe a little easier to experience and accept. So that's just, maybe you have those three characters, love, death, and fortune, on stage all the time. And maybe they're in modern dress, whereas everybody else is in period dress. And that would kind of go with Helen's point of like, it's historical. So that those weird shifts in genre are maybe a little easier to process if we always remember it's a play.
Which it's also. I mean, it's also that question. It's also on the backdrop of history as well, and it's also an interesting question of how many of these people are real. Obviously, there are some very obvious suspects as to who are real, but whether some of the more minor characters actually have a basis on something like that, I don't know. I'm just throwing that thought out there. So yes, we have so far very much enjoyed the company of Soliman and Perseda. We have one more session to go, looking at Act 4 and Act 5, and here we're sitting fingers crossed that it's going to stick. We're not going to end up with a cursed final session, as we have so many times before, where the play's gone, oh, it's all been going so well, and then the playwright does something really terrible with the ending. So fingers crossed, and we're going to see where that goes. All that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers for all their work today. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Bye.
My moist and cloud-compacted brain.